Benson runs a nail factory and decides his business needs a bit of advertising. He has a chat with a friend who works in marketing, and he offers to make a TV ad for Benson's nails. "Give me a week," says the friend, "and I'll be back with an ad." A week goes by and the marketing executive comes to see Benson. He opens his laptop and presses play. A Roman soldier is busy nailing Jesus to the cross. He turns to face the camera and says with a grin, "Use Benson's nails, they'll hold anything." Benson goes mad, shouting, "What is the matter with you? They'll never show that on TV. Give it another try, but no more Romans crucifying Jesus." Another week goes by and the marketing man comes back to see Benson with another ad. He turns his laptop around and hits play. This time the camera pans out from a Roman standing with his arms folded to show Jesus on the cross. The Roman looks up at him and says, "Benson's nails, they'll hold anything." Benson is beside himself. "You don't understand. I don't want anything with Jesus on the cross. Now listen, I'll give you one last chance. Come back in a week with an advertisement that I can broadcast." A week passes and Benson waits impatiently. The marketing executive arrives and puts on the new video. A naked man with long hair, gasping for breath, is running across a field. About a dozen Roman soldiers come over the hill, hot on his trail. One of them stops, turns to camera, and says, "If only we had used Benson's nails." A man walks into an antique store and starts looking around. Suddenly he gazes upon the most stunning bronze statue of a Siamese cat. He asks the store owner how much he wants for the statue. The store owner replies, "It's $200 for the statue and $2,000 for the story that goes with it." The man replies, "I really don't care about the story, but I do want the statue." As the man is paying for the statue, the shop owner says, "All right, but I guarantee you will be back for the story." The man walks out of the shop and starts down the street, carrying the cat statue. When he comes to the crosswalk, he happens to glance behind him and sees 3 or 4 cats sitting about 10 feet away looking at him. He shrugs it off and crosses when the light changes. He goes several more blocks and, at another crosswalk, looks behind himself again. This time there are about 30 cats sitting there looking at him. The man starts to get a little nervous and picks up his pace when the light changes. By the time the man reaches the pier at the end of the street, he has now been running for several blocks. He was running because every time he turned around, there were more and more cats behind him. He looked like the Pied Piper. When he got to the end of the pier, he turned around once more and saw at least 2,000 cats sitting there looking at him. There were so many cats that there was no way to get off the pier without going through them, and he knew there was no way he was going to do that. In a panic, he turned toward the water and heaved the statue as far as he could. Amazingly, all of the cats ran right past him and jumped in the water after the statue and never came out. The man, still shaking from his ordeal, immediately started running back to the shop. As he burst through the door, the shop owner saw him and said, "I told you that you'd be back for the story." "To heck with the story," gasps the man. "Do you have a statue of a politician?" One day when Jesus was relaxing in heaven, he happened to notice a familiar-looking old man. Wondering if the old man was his father Joseph, Jesus asked him, "Did you by any chance ever have a son?" "Yes," said the old man, "but he wasn't my biological son. He was born by a miracle, by the intervention of a magical being from the heavens." "Very interesting," said Jesus. "Did this boy ever have to fight temptation?" "Oh yes, many times," answered the old man. "But he eventually won. Unfortunately, he heroically died at one point, but he came back to life shortly afterwards." Jesus couldn't believe it. Could this actually be his father? "One last question," he said. "Were you a carpenter?" "Why, yes," replied the old man. "Yes, I was." Jesus rubbed his eyes and said, "Dad." The old man rubs tears from his eyes and said, "Pinocchio." An Englishman, an American, and a Japanese are doing white water rafting, when all of a sudden they spot a huge drop to a waterfall they never knew was there. They are moments away from plunging over a waterfall to their doom. Suddenly a genie appears. The genie explains that he is the spirit of the waterfall and he is of limited power. He cannot prevent their inevitable deaths, but but he can grant each man one wish before he dies. The American steps up first. I love my country. Before I die, I want to sing my national anthem one last time, the full version. Give my friends lyric sheets so they can join in. I want a full backing orchestra and a gospel choir. It will be done, says the genie. The Japanese goes next. I love my country too. Nothing represents it better than our wonderful cuisine. Please let me taste one more time the delicacies of my village. I want fermented sticky soybeans, fresh sea urchin, raw horse meat, pickled seaweed, sugared omelets, and please provide enough so I can share the meal with my friends. It will be done, says the genie. The Englishman quietly approaches the genie and whispers in his ear, just send me over the waterfall before the bloody song starts and the food gets here. A burglar breaks into a home and holds the husband and wife hostage. At gunpoint, he forces the two to sit on chairs and ties them to the chairs. The burglar slowly and methodically begins robbing the house. The burglar has taken everything of value and is ready to leave while the homeowners are still bound to their chairs. Suddenly, the man yells at the burglar, Please untie her! Please let her go! No, I'm not untying either of you so that the authorities get notified as late as possible, says the criminal. Don't worry, your neighbors will soon wonder why your lights are still on throughout the night and check in with you. Yet the man again pleads, Please, just untie her, I'll do anything. Look, I need to get away with this crime. I'm sorry, I can't leave anything up to chance, says the burglar, feeling a little ashamed of himself. I'm begging you, man, just let her go. She won't call the cops, I promise. The man is now crying. The burglar, still unwilling to budge, does find it quite touching how much his hostage cared about his wife. Wow, he says, you must really love your wife to beg me to untie her so desperately. Not really, the man replies in a state of frenzy. It's just that she will be home in 15 minutes. Some time ago, in a little village, there was a yearly tradition. The people of the village, who were usually very polite and God-fearing, would, for one day, participate in a competition of curses. So once a year, everyone gathered in the village square and watched their fellow villagers go one by one on the little dais and try to come up with the most foul and creative curses in as flowing and natural a manner as possible. This year wasn't going so well, unfortunately. While some people were pretty creative, no one really impressed the village with their profanity. They've heard variations of it all before. It was late in the afternoon and all the promising talents have already gone up. It came time for lesser talents, and Peter was known to have some good curses on occasion, so he was called up. They called his name several times, but he wasn't answering. Eventually, after a few minutes, they heard the door to the outhouse slam, and Peter ran up the stage. And as he arrived, he had already begun a flow of such profanity, such nasty cursing, that everyone took a step back. He was jumping up and down and saying such things that even ruddy, experienced old men blanched at this incredible tirade of pure verbal pollution. Eventually, the flow of curses ebbed. The village people all stared at him, amazed into silence. All right, said Peter brightly. Got that darn zipper up now for the cursing. With their ailing mother needing constant medical supervision, a family decided to bring her to a very expensive and caring nursing home for a day to try it out. The next morning, the nurses bathed her, fed her a tasty breakfast, and set her in a chair at a window overlooking a lovely flower garden. She seemed okay, but after a while she slowly started to lean over sideways in her chair. 2 attentive nurses immediately rushed up to catch her and straighten her out. Again, she seemed okay, but after a while she started to tilt to the other side. The nurses rushed back and once more brought her back upright. This went on all morning, with the dedicated nurses making sure the old woman didn't fall. Later, the family arrived to see how she was adjusting to her new home. So, Ma, how is it here? Are they treating you all right? They asked. It's very nice, she replied, except they won't let you fart.